Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another Logan Blackman Show YouTube video. I am really excited for this video today because we are covering the state of Iowa and college football. Ladies and gentlemen, is officially back. We had week 0 this past weekend. As fun as that was, this week is the most important week because this is the official start of the college football season. Week 1, and I know if you're a Florida State fan or a Hawaii fan or a Delaware State fan or all those different teams, you could go, Logan, the official start of college football was last week, and again, you just said week 0. But we are here in the state of Iowa. We revolve everything around our college sports teams. Iowa, Iowa State, UNI. We did this last year, and it's a little less chaotic this year recording this video because this time last year, when we posted those 3 videos on back-to-back days, I was moving house. I was moving out of my apartment and moving into this grand stage that you see in front of you right now. And in that process, I was moving everything from my apartment over here. I got the house on the 29th. The first video I posted was on the 29th of August of last year. So a lot less chaotic. I'm not moving anytime soon. At least I hope not. But yeah, this is just an exciting time. Thoroughly exciting time. New things are on us this year. And yeah, let's just get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. Why don't we? But this year for Iowa, and I'm going to say this because I say it every single year, and maybe I should stop saying this, but it feels like this year could be a lot more fun to watch than last year. And I've said that the past 2 years, especially on the opposite side of the ball, like things can't get much worse than what they were this past season at the University of Iowa. I said that last year, and guess what? It got worse. Dead last in almost every single statistical category on the opposite side of the ball. Quarterback play was at an all-time low. Like, no offense to Deacon Hill, he has got to be the worst quarterback I've ever seen play for a Power 5 or now Power 4 conference football team. I've never seen anything like it. And Iowa went on to go to the Big Ten Championship that year in spite of the offense. Cooper DeJean and Torrey Taylor, who are both gone in the NFL, those two were the most important people to the opposite side of the ball for Iowa. And yes, you had like LaShawn Williams in there. Like, he was a good player. Luke Lachey, Eric All led the team in receiving. Nico Reganey was there. But it was just a mess. And it was an absolute mess on the opposite side of the ball. And Deacon Hill, of course, transferred out to Utah Tech. But speaking of the quarterback position, Cade McNamara is back. He is the week 1 starter. It was confirmed by Kirk Ferentz during his press conference during the whole tampering suspension press conference that we had last week. I'll go over that once we get into game time here. But they were tampering with Cade McNamara. Early contact, I think that's what they officially called it. But McNamara, we saw him play the first 4 games last year, first 4 or 5 games of last season. And apart from the first 2 games, we never saw Cade McNamara complete more than 10 passes. We just never saw it. And Cade McNamara, when he got brought in, and I brought this up before, where like when you get a new quarterback, every single problem that you think you have is gone, at least at face value, because the quarterback's the most important position on the football field. Quarterback's the most popular position on the football field as well. Everybody wants to grow up to be a quarterback. Every fan loves the quarterback until they don't. But when Cade McNamara came in, a quarterback from Michigan who was a part of a team that went to the college football playoff, was a conference champion as a starting quarterback before getting benched for J.J. McCarthy, like he was going to bring a newfound stability to the quarterback position, which Iowa hadn't really had in the past 3 years. He wasn't going to make any stupid mistakes. He wasn't going to force the ball. He wasn't going to do anything too flashy, but he was going to lead you to victory. He was going to not necessarily put the team on his back or anything, but he was a locker room presence and a leader that Iowa desperately needed on that side of the ball, and we just didn't see anything that we thought we would see from McNamara in those first 4 or 5 games because he got hurt early on in the Michigan State game in the 5th game. We just didn't see that. It was kind of frustrating to see, but Iowa was winning games. Iowa was very successful last season. Again, 10-2. Deacon Hill was 6-2 as a starter, which is a prime example why wins are not a quarterback stat. But again, Cade McNamara is fully back, fully healthy. So far this offseason has been a little bit up and down. There was some quote-unquote quarterback controversy with McNamara and Northwestern transfer Brendan Sullivan. 6'4", big quarterback, can move decently well. Could maybe, like if you're looking at face value, probably fits the mold of Tim Lester's offense a little bit more than Cade McNamara. But again, I'll reiterate, McNamara will be the starter going into the season. But speaking of Tim Lester, the new offensive coordinator for the Iowa Hawkeyes, formerly the head coach at Western Michigan. He's been a quarterback coach in the past, runs a lot of RPOs. The offense will, I don't think, look that much different early on, especially in that Illinois State game. I don't think we'll see anything too flashy, but the Iowa State game and the games after that, we might see the offense start to grow and expand a little bit. At least that's what we're hoping for. Again, it can't really be much worse than what it was last year, but we'll have to see how much Kirk has his hands on the opposite side of the ball and if he allows Tim Lester to expand this offense. And who knows if we'll have a quarterback controversy during the season. If McNamara play starts to dip, then we might see a change in the quarterback position, which is something that Kirk doesn't do all too often. Who knows if it will actually take place, but it's just something to keep an eye on. As regards to the rest of the offensive players, we obviously brought up LaShawn Williams. Caleb Johnson is there as well. Jazz Patterson, we saw him play sparingly last year, had some good moments this past year as well. We also brought up Luke Lachey. We also got Addison Ostrenga at tight end as well. Nice little 2 tight end set for Iowa because, they always love to have 2 tight end sets. We had Lachey and Eric All this year. Now it's Lachey and Ostrenga. And at wide receiver, Caleb Brown's still there, though he's going to be serving a 1-game suspension for his OWI he had earlier this offseason. And then you also got the likes of Jarrett Bowie at wide receiver and Seth Anderson. So we'll see how their roles increase this upcoming season, especially with, again, Nico Reganey leaving this past offseason. The offensive line, will continue to improve. Logan Jones, one of the best centers in all of college football, projected to be a first-team All-Big Ten selection this year. You also got Connor Colby and Bo Stevens in there. Nick DeYoung will also be a rotational piece, I would imagine, in there. Jennings Dunkers, who we just saw in the mic'd up video the other day, which was a very, very good video. I would very much recommend you go and watch that video.
I probably shouldn't blow my nose on it.
And then Mason Richmond, the other offensive tackle as well. So this is an experienced unit for the University of Iowa this year along the offensive line, which is very important. We expect to see the run offense improve, and we just want to see the pass offense improve just even slightly. Slightly would be better than nothing, like we have seen the past few years at Iowa. But with whatever problems they have on the offensive side of the ball, they have not had any of those on the defensive side of the ball. Sure, they lost the likes of Logan Lee and Joe Evans on the defensive line, but Y.A. Black, Deontay Craig's coming back as well. The linebacking core of Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson is one of the best linebacking cores in all of college football. Nick Jackson, one of the best, or Jay Higgins, sorry. Well, I guess you could say either one, but Jay Higgins led the nation in tackles last year with 171. And you look at the secondary, Sebastian Castro, beast. You've got Quint Schulte. You've got Xavier Wongpa. You've got a very established set there. Jamari Harris is also there. You're going to have to figure out to replace Cooper DeJean, who obviously went in the second round, who did so much. Like, I don't think it's hyperbolic to say or crazy to say that Cooper DeJean is one of the most single most talented players in the University of Iowa football history. He was so insane for Iowa, could do so many different things for you offensively, defensively, special teams. Like, he was just an immense player for the University of Iowa in his time here. And you're going to need to see the likes of John Nestor or Deshaun Lee step up and replace him in that cornerback spot. But again, with Phil Parker at the helm, the defense will always be the strong point for the University of Iowa. And you know what? This is a defense that can definitely win you a lot of games. They needed to win the team a lot of games last year. Now, Torrey Taylor, the whole thing of the whole punting is winning type thing. Torrey Taylor, again, is gone, which is sad. Hate to see that, but you did manage to bring in another Australian punter in Reese Dakin, so we'll see how he does this upcoming season, see if he replace the legend that is Torrey Taylor. He's stepping in big. He threw on the number 9 jersey as well. That doesn't come lightly. That's not something he should take lightly, so I hope he's up for the task this season for Iowa. I'm optimistic for this year in regards to, I think the team will be good. This schedule, again, is very maneuverable. We said the same thing last year. If you're looking at the preseason rankings and everything, Iowa only plays one ranked team, and that's Ohio State. I mean, you could include Illinois State because I think they're ranked in the FCS poll. And speaking of Illinois State, Iowa will take them on week 1. Missouri Valley Football Conference teams are always really tough to play. Remember when Iowa played South Dakota State a couple years ago in that 7-3 drubbing with 2 safeties and a field goal? 7 points with no touchdowns is really impressive if you think about it. But then Iowa's played the likes of North Dakota State in the past as well. They played UNI. They have a history of playing Missouri Valley Football Conference teams, and Illinois State is a tough team. And Kirk Ferentz will not be on the sideline. This will be Seth Wallace stepping in as the head coach for this game. The head coach, and I don't even want to know what you want to call it. It's not an interim head coach. He's just the head coach for this game. And again, Caleb Brown will not be there as well for his, again, suspension for the OWI that he had this offseason. But as for Illinois State, they're returning 6 all-conference performers from a season ago. Mason King, one of the best running backs at the FCS level, especially the Missouri Valley Football Conference, was named the conference's newcomer of the year this past year. Had around 800, 900 rushing yards this past year. And then you also got the likes of Amir Abdullah, who was one of their best players on the defensive side of the ball. Linebacker. Their linebacking core is one of their main focal points on the defensive side of the ball. Along with Amir Abdullah, who again had 9.5 sacks this past year. Again, very good player on the defensive side of the ball. You also got the likes of Ty Niekamp and Lavois Deontay McCoy. You've got depth there at the linebacker position. They had the 22nd ranked defense from the season before, and they're experienced. You got safeties that are both in their 3rd year as a starter. You got a 6'3" corner on the outside as well, which could cause some matchup problems for Iowa in this game. On the outside side of the ball, they were very good. They were 12th ranked offense in the FCS last year in regards to points per game. And for them in this season, with the offense being as good as it was last year, you brought back your starting running back that we brought back like we brought it before. Your top 3 receivers from a season before are back, and 3 of your 5 starting offensive linemen are back. So there's a lot of returning pieces on this offensive side of the ball. Now, they will need to figure out their starting quarterback. I don't think they've officially announced a starter for this first game against Iowa, because you got the likes of Jake Rubley, who transferred in from Kansas State, and Tommy Rittenhouse, who was there last year. Saw a few games this past season for Illinois State. Didn't really do anything like amazing, but didn't do anything too bad either. So we'll have to wait and see what the quarterback battle goes like going into this game against Iowa. But with all that being said, it's going to be a tough game. Illinois State's not a pushover team by any means, and I don't think this is going to be a game like we kind of brought up before where Iowa really shows a lot. With the Iowa State game coming up the next week, I don't think Iowa really goes out there and goes like, this is what this offense can be. Like, this is a really like learning process game. At least that's what I would imagine to be. I don't think it'll be like a blowout or anything like some people are predicting with like a Power 4 conference team taking on an FCS team. I don't think it will be that. It could be wrong, but I do think Iowa still managed to get a dub on their first game of the season going into that game against Iowa State. Which, speaking of, it's back at home. Obviously, Iowa won this game last year at Jack Trice Stadium. I was at the game. Pretty fun game to go to, not going to lie, especially when your team comes away with a win. But Iowa State last year, they were so lit. No one knew what to expect from them. Nobody knew. By the time we recorded this video last year, it was Rocco Becht or J.J. Cole's the starter. We didn't know who the quarterback was going to be. We didn't know anything on the offensive side of the ball or really we knew the defense would be fine with John Heacock still there. TJ Tampa was there. Like, you had pieces still on defense, but the offense you just didn't know. So Iowa State fans didn't really have a lot of expectations. If they did have expectations, they were rather low. I'm not going to lie. The people I talked to before I recorded the Iowa State video last year were not too confident going in. Like, hell, I had an idea that you and I would beat Iowa State week 1 last year, and that didn't happen or come anywhere close to that. But as the season progressed, Iowa State got better. They have a new offensive coordinator. Nate Scheelhaus went up to the Los Angeles Rams. I think he's an offensive analyst or something like that for the Rams. I could be completely wrong about that. And replacing him is Taylor Moser, who's been the tight end coach at Iowa State. He's been there for quite a while now. He will serve as the team's new offensive coordinator. So I'm intrigued to see how they do there, especially with bringing back 10 people on the offensive side of the ball. It's 9 or 10 people coming back as starters on the offensive side of the ball. And the main guys, of course, are Rocco Becht, who looked great last season in stretches. Abu Sama, who had that insane 200-plus yard rushing game in the Snow Bowl against Kansas State. You got Jalen Knoll still there. Higgins is still there. The offensive line will continue to improve because remember, they got UNI's offensive line coach last year. So that will continue to improve. You will see changes around the offensive line, which will get better for them as the season progresses. But like we said before, the defensive side of the ball, like Iowa, is where Iowa State makes their bread and butter. Again, their 3-3-5 defense is very impressive. John Heacock, one of the best defensive coordinators in all of college football. TJ Tampa's gone, but you still got the likes of Purchase there in the secondary. Jeremiah Cooper, who's one of the highest interception totals this past season. Bo Frailer is also back on the defensive side of the ball. So Iowa State will be good on both sides of the ball, returning, I think, 19 of 22 starters from a season before, in a season where they weren't expected to do anything. And they finished, 7-6? Like, it was a great season, and all things considered, in regards to what expectations were to what they ended up being, I would say that's a great season. And going into this game against Iowa, going back to the last time Iowa State beat Iowa was at Kinnick Stadium 2 years ago. So do we see a repeat of that here? I don't think so. But I'm not going to die on my sword or die on this hill or fall. I can fall on my sword if I need to. But I think Iowa does have enough in the tank, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And we'll see a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball as well. Again, that will be a continued theme here. And Iowa State, they're another team. Like Iowa in that first game against Illinois State, they play North Dakota week 1. Iowa State and Matt Campbell are notorious for not showing anything week 1. So I would imagine same thing here, especially with a new offensive coordinator coming, even though he's been around the program for the past few seasons now. I do think Iowa gets enough to get a dub at home. I'm not thinking it's going to be an extremely high-scoring game or anything, but I will say Iowa gets the dub here. Then going into week 3, Iowa will take on the Troy Trojans. This is a really weird team. I'm not going to lie. Troy finished 11-3 last year. 11-3, but they're bringing back nobody. Like, in regards to the 22 players on offense and defense side of the ball, they're bringing back 4 players, 2 on offense, 2 on defense. They're replacing their 3rd all-time leading passer. They're replacing their all-time leading rusher, who just had 1,700 yards this past season, 1,700 yards this past year. Those are not easy pieces to replace. And they also got a new head coach in Jared Parker. So this is just a completely new team, pretty much. 11-3 last year, bringing back 4 of 22 starters, new head coach, new quarterback, new running back. Like, there's just so many question marks around Troy, and they could still be a good team. because there's just nobody knows. You bring back 4 players, no one has a real idea of what you are going to be going into this season. Goose Crowder is the starting quarterback this upcoming season. Again, we saw him sparingly last year. He's going to be your guy going into the season. Sick name though, Goose Crowder. Hell yeah. And then at running back, you got Damian Taylor Jr. Ran for about 300 yards this past year. And Troy, when they run the ball with consistency, are dominant. Like this past season, they were 9-0 when they ran for over 100 yards. 3-3 in games they weren't. So this is a team that will want to run the football, and Taylor he has big shoes to fill. Again, you're replacing a 1,700-yard rusher. It's not an easy thing to do. Will he be up for it? We'll have to wait and see. But I do think, again, Iowa will be able to get the dub here against Troy. This shouldn't be a game that is like, they struggle too much, but who knows? I shouldn't be sitting here acting like this is going to be like a 1-point game or anything. I don't think that, but I also don't think Iowa will win by 50 points or anything. But time will tell. I do think they'll get the win over Troy. And then the next week, they play at Minnesota. Minnesota's returning 16 starters on both sides of the ball. New quarterback coming in this year, Ethan Kaliak-Manis transferred over to Rutgers. So new quarterback will be Max Brosmer, transferred in from New Hampshire this offseason. Minnesota, like you know, they want to run the football. PJ Fleck has always wanted that in his offensive style. And Minnesota's returning 4 stars to the offensive line as well. Notably, Ariante Urzuri, who's one of the best left tackles in all of college football. Not just the Big Ten, but just in all of college football in general. And at running back, Darius Taylor, he led the Big Ten in rushing yards in the first month of last season before getting hurt. It's like, didn't have a ton of yards last year, but we'll see that improve if he can stay healthy as the season progresses. Then you've also got the likes of Daniel Jackson, who's one of the better receivers in the Big Ten. He'll be returning this past year at about 830 yards this past season for Minnesota. Defensively, Tyler Nubin, he went up to the NFL this offseason. That's a massive loss for the defensive side of the ball. But they do have Justin Wally, who's one of the best cornerbacks in the Big Ten. And they've also got Devin Eastern and Logan Richter, who are a very nice interior defensive line duo. And then one of the big questions going into the season for them as well, we talk about injuries with Taylor. Cody Lindenberg, one of their best players on the defensive side of the ball at linebacker, can he stay healthy? And I think this game, this was a mess last year. This is obviously the Cooper DeJean fair catch game that everybody was talking about. It's not a fair catch or whatever you want to call it that game. But this is going to be a game I would imagine Iowa's going to be really motivated for going in. They lost this game last year, but in controversial circumstance. I don't think they'll let that same thing happen again. We'll see how Max Brosmer does for the Gophers as the starting quarterback, but I do think Iowa will get the dub. So starting off 4-0 on the season. And I don't think you have to be the smartest person in the world to figure out that I'm probably not going to have Iowa win their next game, and that's going to Ohio State, to the Horseshoe, to take on the Buckeyes. Some new faces came in this offseason for the Buckeyes, notably Will Howard from Kansas State, replacing Kyle McCord, who transferred up to Syracuse, and Quinshon Judkins, who transferred in from Ole Miss. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard season for the Rebels these past couple years. And you also got Travion Henderson still there. Emeka Egbuka is still there. You got Jeremiah Smith as well coming in as another 5-star recruit from Ohio State who just crap out receivers like nothing here. But with Will Howard coming in, with the running backs they have, like Ohio State on offense will have a lot. And Iowa's defense, for how good they are, the bend but don't break mentality that Iowa sometimes implements against these high-powered offenses, it'll be thoroughly tested here. Like, I don't think Will Howard's a world beater or anything, but I do believe he's an upgrade on Kyle McCord. He's also a very big threat in the running game as well. He's a bigger quarterback, good arm. Like, I think Ohio State on offense will be awesome this upcoming season. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you got Jack Sawyer at 1D end. You also got JT Tuamolu as well as there on the defensive line, giving them one of the best edge rushing pairings in all of college football. You also got Tyleik Williams in the interior. Denzel Burke, one of the best cornerbacks in college football, still there as well. Like, this is just a very good, well-rounded Ohio State football team, and I think they're just going to have too much of the Hawkeyes going in, especially with this game being at Ohio State. I'm going to give the Buckeyes the edge and say that Iowa's undefeated start to the season crashes right there, going 4-1 to start the season. And their next game, they're taking on one of the newcomers of the Big Ten, Washington, who are just a completely new team. Much like we talked about with Troy before, we don't really know what Washington's going to be, especially with the fact that they're in a new conference. They replaced everybody from a team that went to the college football playoff, went to the national championship game this past season. Like, Michael Penix is gone, Dylan Johnson's gone, Adunze, McMillan, Jaden Polk's gone, Troy Fautanu's also gone. Like your head coach is gone, Kalen DeBoer's gone, Grubb's gone, both went down to Alabama, your defense coordinator's gone. Like, there's so many question marks around this football team coming in. And you brought in Jed Fish, and you also got in like Bill Belichick's son, Steve Belichick, as the defensive coordinator. You brought in Will Rogers this offseason from Mississippi State, who I think is a fine quarterback. I don't think he's anything like world-beating again, but I think he's fine. He's got a decent arm. He's not incredibly mobile, but he's a solid quarterback for Washington. And out wide, you got the likes of Jeremiah Hunter, who transferred from Cal, and Giles Jackson. And on the defensive side, Jabbar Muhammad. We brought up some lost in the offensive side of the ball. Jabbar Muhammad transferred over to Oregon. Big Ten rivals there. Transferred to a Big Ten school. this offseason, so losing him was very big. But they did manage to get Ephesians Prysock from Arizona and Jordan Shaw from Indiana to help secure the secondary. And then you've also got the likes of Elijah Jackson, who's still there. Like Washington, they're a new team, new head coach, new players all over the place, but they're still, I would imagine, be solid this season. But with it being at Iowa, and again, with all the new people they have, despite them being, could be a solid team, I think Iowa will get the dub over their new conference rival, their new conference foe in the Washington Huskies. And then moving on to the next week, you got at Michigan State. Michigan State, much like Washington, is a very new team. You got a new quarterback coming in Aiden Childs, who a lot of people are really excited about. Transferred in from Oregon State this past offseason, following in the footsteps of Jonathan Smith, who was the head coach at Oregon State, who made them a really tough team to beat. They were a team that established the line of scrimmage, that dominated the line of scrimmage, and ran the ball really well. And that's what I would imagine Michigan State's going to want to do. Aiden Childs is a lot better than any of the quarterbacks that Michigan State's had these past couple years. Like, he's an accurate, he's a bigger quarterback, he's got the size that you want, and he's very athletic as well, which has caused Iowa some problems. All the best defensive coordinators out there say mobile quarterbacks that can throw on the run and can cause plays with their feet or cause problems with their feet are massive issues. So we'll see how Iowa is able to contain him when they go to East Lansing to play the Spartans. And with Jonathan Smith wanting to establish more physical tone on the opposite side of the ball, you would expect Nathan Carter to have a much improved season this next coming year, but also out wide at wide receiver, you got some decent weapons out there for Aiden Childs as well. You got the likes of Monterey Foster still at wide receiver, and the likes of Jack Velling at tight end. So you got two experienced guys there for Michigan State on the opposite side of the ball, at least in the regards to the weapons go. And on the defensive side of the ball, they are returning 10 stars. Their linebacking core is probably their main focal point on the defensive side of the ball. You've got the likes of Cal Halliday, you got Wayne Matthews, Jordan Hall. Their safeties are fairly solid as well. You've got the likes of Malik Spencer, Dylan Tatum. Like, you've got experience on the defensive side of the ball, which has not really been a strong point for Michigan State these past couple years, but you're expecting to improve. I've seen some people talk about Michigan State being one of the dark horses in the Big Ten, maybe not to win the conference, but you're looking at a team that could possibly win up to 6, 7, 8 games this next season. I don't necessarily believe that, but time will tell on that. I know Aiden Childs is getting a lot of people excited for this upcoming season for the Spartans, and though it's in East Lansing, and though Michigan State will probably be an improved team on last year, I am going to say Iowa goes up there and comes away with a dub. And then coming in next week, they got Northwestern back at home. This was a very odd game last year. I guess you could say that about Northwestern in general last season. They just took a lot of people by surprise. Nobody was expecting anything from them. With the whole Pat Fitzgerald situation going on, the fact that they managed to win 8 games this past season is truly impressive. I don't think anybody, even the most diehard Northwestern fan, saw them coming away with 8 wins this past year. And there have been some changes so far this offseason for Northwestern. They brought in a new offensive coordinator, brought in Luan from South Dakota State, who's one of the best, most physical teams in the FCS. We brought him up before, so Northwestern, I would imagine, would be able to run the ball a little bit better this upcoming season. You also got a new quarterback coming in as well. Ben Bryant transferred. Brendan Sullivan transferred to Iowa, obviously. We brought him up before. And the current favorite, I don't know if they've officially named a starter, but Mike Wright transferred him, a former Vanderbilt, Mississippi State quarterback, 6'4", bigger dude, like 195, so not necessarily the most thick guy in the world, but 6'4", can move, can throw on the run. Again, could cause problems. This is back-to-back weeks for Iowa facing a taller, more mobile quarterback, so we'll see again how they manage to handle it. Mike Wright's a solid quarterback. I think that's the best I could say about it. He's nothing like amazing or anything, but he's a very solid quarterback who I think could do some nice things for Northwestern this coming season. And then we talk about the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball. Northwestern was one of the best teams in all of college football in regards to forcing turnovers. They had one of the best turnover margins in all of college football this past season. Now, they did lose some key pieces in the secondary. You got the likes of Rod Hurd, Garrett Hollis, and Jaheim Joseph. The latter two transferred to West Virginia, but they do still have Xander Mueller and the linebacker spot, one of the better linebackers in the Big Ten. Northwestern I find it hard to believe that they're going to be able to replicate what they did last year in regards to forcing turnovers, but this is still a team that could cause Iowa problems. And throughout the history of Northwestern versus Iowa, this is a game that Iowa has struggled with, regardless of how good Northwestern is or how good Iowa is. This is some game, for whatever reason, that always just seems to be a little hiccup in the road or a little fork in the road. I do think, though, with it being back at home, obviously this game was at Wrigley last year, I'm going to say the Hawkeyes get a win. So getting back on the winning train after the Ohio State loss. We have 3 straight wins, for the Hawkeyes going to the next week of the regular season, which of course is against the Wisconsin Badgers. And man, I cannot stand Wisconsin. I can't stand Minnesota. I can't stand Wisconsin. I can't stand a team that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And Wisconsin, this game was kind of messy. I guess you could say. I think that's the best way I could describe it, is just messy. Like, obviously Iowa came away with the win in that game at Camp Randall, but this was a game last year I predicted Iowa to lose. You had Luke Fickell coming in. Like, you had a new offense they were going to try and implement. Obviously going to try and do a little bit more, like, maybe not air raid offense, but a more spread out offense, which is something Wisconsin just never really done. You had Braylon Allen there at running back, who's now gone. Tanner Mordecai transferred in for quarterback. He's now gone as well. They brought in Tyler Van Dyke from Miami, who I think fits this Luke Fickell style offense a little bit better. He's a bigger guy. He's an older guy as well. He's got a very good arm. I think he fits very well with this Wisconsin Badger offense and what they're trying to do moving forward. Like, in though Shamir DK transferred out this offseason to Florida, you still do have Wilt Pauling and Bryson Green at wide receiver as well. So you do still have some options from the season prior. And we brought up Braylon Allen leaving and going to the NFL this past offseason, going to the Jets, obviously. Like, replacing Braylon Allen, they got Ches Malissi, who had a decent start to last season. Like, he had 157 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in their week 1 game last year. Had a bad injury after that, so he didn't really, I think he played 3 games in total last year. They've been easing him back into that. Wisconsin will want to run the ball. They ran the ball with success last year, obviously having a big-ass dude and Braylon Allen back there, but when Wisconsin runs the ball 35 times a game, they were 7-0. Or 35 times a game. When they run the ball 35 or more times, they were 7-0 last year. And it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out that Wisconsin, they finished 7-6 last year. So when they didn't do that, they finished 0-6. So it's just an interesting thing to look at for Wisconsin going into this. Along with Melissa, you got Tyree Walker in there as well, transferred in from Oklahoma. A little bit smaller running back, about 5'9", but he'll provide Melissa with some nice depth option behind him. And on the defensive side of the ball, they're not like world beaters or anything, but they did only allow 24 points twice, or more, 24 or more points twice this past season. And they did manage to get in John Pius from William Mary, who had 18.5 sacks the past 2 seasons for them. He also got the likes of Hunter Wohler and Jake Chaney coming back as well. Wohler a safety, Chaney a linebacker. So they've got some returning pieces, and Pius will be interesting to watch going into this season as one of the best edge rushers at the FCS level, see how it translates to the Big Ten in Wisconsin. But with the new chain, with this being Luke Fickell's second year running this offense, I think I'm going to lean Wisconsin getting back at Iowa from a season before. I predicted this loss for Iowa last year, and it didn't come to fruition, so maybe I'm doing the same thing here. Maybe Iowa comes away with a dub again because I'm saying Wisconsin's going to win this game, but I'm going to give Iowa their second loss of the season at home against Wisconsin. And then next week, they're going to UCLA, playing Friday night at UCLA in the Rose Bowl. Iowa's last trip to the Rose Bowl was not great, not gonna lie, not one of my favorite games I've ever watched, but this is a new look UCLA team. Chip Kelly transferred over to Ohio State, He left UCLA, is now the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, and new head coach Deshaun Foster had one of the more interesting Big Ten Media Day press conferences that I've seen in recent memory.
I'm sure you guys don't know too much about UCLA, but our football program, but we're in LA. It's us and USC. We I'm just basically excited, really. That's it. Any questions?
Former running back, he's been with UC. He was the running back coach last year. And speaking of running backs and former running backs, Eric Bieniemy has come in to serve as the offensive coordinator for UCLA this season. So if that tells you nothing, it tells you they're going to run the football this year, or they're going to want to establish the run this year. And obviously, they don't have Carson Steele, went up to the NFL this year and had pretty good preseason with the Kansas City Chiefs so far. But the likes of TJ Harden and Keegan Jones will be those guys they turn to replace Carson Steele. They got 4 stars returning on the offensive line as well, which is big for them. At quarterback, Ethan Garbers is now the main guy there. He rotated with Dante Moore, who transferred in from Oregon. And Ethan Garbers is, I guess you could say, fine. I think it's the best way I could say it. The thing that he does well, especially for a UCLA team that wants to establish the run and run the ball with effectiveness, is that he doesn't turn the ball over. Dante Moore last year had 11 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Garbers, on the other hand, had 11 touchdowns and just 3 interceptions. Not saying he was amazing or anything, but that's what UCLA is going to want to do. Let's see if he can take another jump this coming season, if he can get those touchdowns and passing yards up as well, while keeping the interception total to a minimum. And what's nice for him is top 3 receiving options from a season before are all back as well. Now, the same cannot be said for the defensive side of the ball. Their 2 top edge rushers from last year, Gabriel Murphy and Leatu Latu, is the 15th overall pick and the first defender taken in this past year draft. They're both gone. Those are not too, especially Latu is not an easy player to replace. It's much easier said than done to replace Leatu Latu. But that being said, they do have a solid linebacking core. Their secondary is decent as well. So I don't think UCLA will be absolutely, I don't think they'll be absolutely atrocious here, especially if they're able to establish the run and not turn the ball over. But in this game, Iowa's going to take it here. I do think Iowa will cause problems for Ethan Garbers, force his hand a little bit, and come away from the Rose Bowl, avenging the team that lost to Stanford in the Rose Bowl a few years ago. And then week 11, Iowa's going to Maryland. This could be a Brian Ferentz revenge game. Remember, he's now at Maryland. He's their offensive analyst over there. So this could be a nice little revenge game. This is a new-ish look Maryland team. Tulia Tagovailoa has been the quarterback for the past 2-3 years, is now gone. And replacing him, they haven't announced an official starter yet, but there has been a three-way quarterback battle so far this offseason with the likes of MJ Morris, Billy Edwards, Cameron Edge. I would say MJ Morris is probably the favorite, but, who the hell knows at this point. But this is a Maryland team that put up points religiously. Like this past season, they scored 419 total points. That's damn impressive for the Maryland Terrapins. And Tulia Tagovailoa is a big reason for that. They've got good receivers outside as well. Like Ty Felton and Caden Prather both had 600 plus yards this past season receiving, though they did lose their top tight end and top receiver from this past season. But this is a Maryland team that we said likes to score points. They like to score points in bunches. Like when they scored 31 or more points this past season, they were 7-0. They were an insane team when they could score the football at will. But the problems that we have there, again, the quarterback situation, there's new face in the offensive line. It's a rather inexperienced offensive line in regards to playing together. They have a couple transfers coming in as well. Defensively, they do have 8 starters coming back, and they did pick off 15 passes this past year. But like we said with the offensive line, they have a few new faces in there. So, and like we brought up with Northwestern, if they're able to replicate what they did the season before, it remains to be seen. We'll have to say it. We'll have time will tell on that. And though I think Brian Ferentz and co will be motivated in this game, I think Iowa will have enough to get over Maryland and go into this last game of the regular season with a nice 9-2 record. And of course, that last game of the regular season is against Nebraska, the only team that had a worse passing offense in the Big Ten than Iowa was Nebraska. Now, obviously, everybody expects that to change. Dylan Raiola, 5-star quarterback, freshman, coming in, Patrick Mahomes clone, admittedly Patrick Mahomes clone. In regards to how he dresses, how he looks, how he prepares for everything, even same number, they wear 15. Like, there's a lot riding on Dylan Raiola. I don't think there's been this much hype for a Nebraska quarterback since Adrian Martinez's 80th year at Nebraska, where he was a dark horse Heisman again. Now, this is Matt Rule's second year, as Nebraska head coach. So you're going to want to see a little bit of improvement. They haven't won 7 games since 2016. So that's their main goal this upcoming season. With Matt Rule, when he got hired last year, brought a little bit of excitement. Dylan Raiola only amplified that. In the whole state of Nebraska, there's a lot riding on Dylan Raiola going into this season. But that being said, Nebraska is returning 9 stars on offense and 8 stars on defense. So it's not like they're revamping the entire roster and Dylan Raiola is like he's the only person that could say. It's not like Washington or Troy where they're returning like 2 people on the outside of the ball. No, they're returning a decent amount of starters as well. Like Gabe Irvin's coming back at running back. He missed most of last season due to injury, but you would expect to see that rushing numbers go up this next season. You've also got the likes of Ramir Johnson, Emmett Johnson, Dante Dodell as well. So you got some running back depth in there as well. You got the Johnson and Dodell in there. So yeah, I would expect to see that definitely increase this next coming season, which is a nice thing to have for a freshman quarterback, is have some depth at the running back position, which is something Nebraska didn't really do a whole lot last year of running the ball. And he did bring in Isaiah Naylor from Texas. He tore his ACL last year, but for a Wyoming team, before he transferred to Texas, for a Wyoming team that's not necessarily known for stretching the field, he averaged 20 yards per reception. So he's going to be a very big target for Iowa going into his freshman season. And you also got the likes of Jamal Banks as well on the outside as well, which is going to be, I could just keep saying this, but there's so much hype for this season going in for this kid. So for Nebraska fans, you need some of these guys to also step up so he doesn't have the weight of the world on his shoulders, which I'm just going to place all of that on right now, unintentionally. And on the defensive side of the ball, they're bringing 8 starters back. All 3 stars on the defensive line are coming back as well. And then Isaac Gifford is also back at the rover position. So this is a Nebraska team that I would imagine is going to be better than next year. Will they win 7 games? Time will tell on that. But again, they haven't won 7 games since 2016. It's been a long-ass time since they've done so. They beat Iowa 2 years ago. Iowa rectified that last year. I think Iowa stays on course and beats Nebraska this year too to finish the regular season with a nice, calm, cool 10-2 record. So the exact same record as last year. Predicted 10-2 last year. They finished 10-2. Predicted 10-2 this year. Hopefully they finish 10-2. I could see them going 11-1 though. I have a hard time envisioning them beating Ohio State, but time will tell. Maybe they pull off the most insane upset ever and beat the Buckeyes because their offense is so high octane and so potent. It's just amazing. Cade McNamara goes on to win the Heisman Trophy and all that stuff. Time will tell, but I'm excited. College football is back, ladies and gentlemen. We will have the Iowa State and UNI previews coming up for you shortly as well. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did not, I sincerely apologize. Try to be better next time. Hope you're excited for college football as much as I am. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys. Oh, check out all the links in the description as well. I didn't mention that before, but make sure to check out all the links to the different social medias and the podcast and all that stuff as well. I've been Logan Blackman. I will see you all later. Peace.